approach the Yomim Noraim for a very important topic, and we have some special guests with us, some who have come from closer and some who have come from significantly farther. And we're going to be focusing on a specific topic this evening, which is really timely, of course. The Navi Yirmiyahu, as I introduce a special, I guess you would call us a cast of characters. Rabbi Binyomin Wolf, not too many people come to a Beis Medrash to hear an attorney speak about spirituality, but in our Beis Medrash tonight, we are welcoming a lay leader from the Five Towns community, I guess you would call it, trained as an attorney, practicing now in the business world, but on the side, he has kind of an avocation in the world of spirituality. He is a close devotee of a remarkable spiritual figure by the name of Rav Moshe Weinberger, who is a mashpia at Yeshiva University. He's also a Rav of Eish Kodesh in Woodmere. Woodmere, correct? That's where it is. And Rabbi Binyomin has his own very interesting personal journey of how he joined not just the observant community, the spiritual community, but also the Jewish community from his own kind of personal background journey, and now is involved in disseminating the Torah of Rav Moshe Weinberger, which is really rooted in spirituality. Our second guest is a local fan favorite.
From what you said at the beginning about how it's possible to have it's mitzvasi shamaru, but still to have mitzvahs and yet abandon God. And we actually interestingly see this connecting to, I guess, one of the topics I hope to talk about tonight is you also see that the opposite is possible. It's possible to return to Hashem before actually returning to mitzvahs. And we see that in the, and we actually see that in the Kli Yakar, in the pasuk at the beginning of the fourth Aliyah, this week's parsha, Nitzavim, where he talks about how it says that the Jewish people, after all the klolos and all the curses and all the horrible things come true, after we went into exile and we abandoned Hashem's mitzvahs, and then it says that we return, that we repent, we return to Hashem. It never says we started keeping mitzvahs again. The Kli Yakar points out 500 years ago, 450 years ago, we actually didn't start keeping mitzvahs yet. We just returned to Hashem. We started getting our mind in the right place. We started returning to want to be better, want to be good. And that we were ready, we're starting to move in the right direction spiritually and connecting to God again. We weren't keeping the mitzvahs yet. It's only about 12 psukim later that it says that it's mitzvosai shamar, that you started keeping the mitzvahs again. What about 12 psukim later? First it says we just returned to Hashem, we started doing tshuva, and then it says even after we started doing tshuva without doing mitzvahs yet, we were already it says v'kibetzcha, v'shav Hashem elokecha el artzecha, v'kibetzcha v'rechamecha. Hashem says He already is gathering us back in together. He brought us into Eretz Yisrael. We see that today. What happened in Eretz Yisrael in 1948 is much less Torah observance in those days. Yet Hashem brought us back, and slowly we've been returning to mitzvos after returning to the land, which is what it describes in the fourth of the parsha. But I guess so. To go back to answering what the actual question was, so what is spirituality? Obviously, it's a very difficult thing to understand or summarize in a brief period of time. But briefly, I would just say that to me, just based on my experience and learning, it's recognizing. It's a very simple idea, but it's recognizing that everything comes from Hashem, and that is a much deeper thing than what it sounds like, because it means that everything is l'chadchila, and everything being l'chadchila means even things that I don't think of as being l'chadchila in my life, past mistakes that I've made, the sins that I've committed, the sins my parents committed, difficulties, things that don't work out, things that make it hard for me to keep Shabbos or sing Zmiros or live a spiritual life, or the way my wife or my husband doesn't act, didn't raise the kids the way that I would like to Jewish, whatever the things are in my life that seem to me to be b'diavad, that make my Jewish life a b'diavad life. So Hashem is saying that no, Kol b'yidei Shemayim. If you can you change what you did in the past? No, you can't actually change the fact of what you did in the past. You can do tshuva, but you can't change the fact of what you did in the past. The fact that you find yourself in that position based on what you did in the past is part of a kol b'yidei Shemayim. It's part of how everything is in Hashem's hands. So that's part of the lechatchila of where you're supposed to be. So I don't know. We don't have time for anybody else, but it's.
We'll come back a little further.
Yeah, but.
Okay. Any thoughts?
I would start by actually drawing a
So Rabbi Rand was kind enough to, I guess, I want me to give like a little bit of the background, but I guess the nakud I wanted to bring out. So I called the thing studying Hasidus to deepen one's understanding of life in Torah. I guess the emphasis being it's really both. Different people have, I guess, different ways of getting a deeper, of connecting to spirituality, connecting to God, that appeals to them, that corresponds to their nature. But for me, the one I discovered, after, I don't know, not really knowing whether, the truth is it was the same thing when I was Reformed. I wasn't like on a spiritual quest. I wasn't like traveling the East, and I was in 10th grade. I wasn't like particularly, satisfied spiritually, but I also wasn't particularly unsatisfied spiritually. I just figured there's nothing else out there. I didn't really know. And Torah also, I kind of had this inkling. Rashi always says, "Eina mikra omer ela darsheni," in various places. I always had that feeling that the Torah was saying, darshan me, there's something more here, but no one was speaking about it. Till I discovered Hasidus, and I discovered that there are those who are speaking about it, who are speaking about something beneath the surface. In the Shivim Panim Torah, there is so I mentioned the Kli Yakar as just one example of how right here in Nitzav in this week's parsha, what it says on how on how we can how the Jewish people were returning to Hashem, that we basically believed that when Hashem sent us in the Galus and we stopped keeping the mitzvahs, that Hashem was telling us He didn't want our mitzvahs anymore. That is, Hidachacha. He was pushing us away from mitzvahs, not just from Eretz Yisrael. And then He didn't want us anymore. We were miyayesh from ourselves. That we gave up hope of having any spiritual life, any future life. And Hashem was telling us through the parsha that the Jewish people returned, but it doesn't say they started keeping mitzvahs yet. And Hashem welcomed them back and brought them back into Eretz Yisrael to show them that no, I do want your mitzvahs. I did not give up on you. I still believe in you. I still have hope in you. It's that deeper understanding. It's Kli Yakar. It's just say further we all have. It's not just Hasidus, but I guess I'll just give an example of the type of Torah where we learn from Hasidus something deeper about the Torah than maybe what was apparent before or what we learned before, and how that teaches us something more deep about our own lives, about how Hashem is in everything in our lives, how everything is the way it is for a reason, and that it's lechatchila. I kept saying that phrase in the other thing, that it's not b'diavad. Whatever it is, it seems bad. It seems less than ideal. It seems anti-spiritual. I can't keep Shabbos the way I want, or I can't have the kind of Shabbos that I want to have because of my circumstances, for whatever reason. But it's the way it is for a reason. Hashem made it that way. So he says on that. So we'll try to go through quickly a portion of this. The piece is actually 4 pages long, but just a little bit of it. So it says, "V'yigash," it's the bottom one. Everything within me has meaning. Shapira. So this is the Pirsetz the Rebbe in Derech HaMelech and Parshas V'yigash. So the pasuk says, "V'yigash elav Yehuda." Yehuda approaches Yosef. Yomar bi Adoni. He says, "Please, my master." But literally, bi Adoni means within me is my master. So the Pirsetz of the Ish Kodesh says, if you go down a couple lines to the little bracket, again it's on the third source. So he says, "Sheyesh misha mislahev l'fa'amim." I don't know. Probably most of us here can relate to this. That there are those who sometimes they got they had a fire a little bit. They had a little bit of excitement in Yiddishkeit. They had a growth period. Where they were an actual colloquial Bal Tshuva, where they just got into Yiddishkeit for a while more, got into spirituality more. Shemislahev l'fa'amim, gets on fire a little bit for Yiddishkeit sometimes. But then afterwards, he falls back, the excitement wears off, and he falls back into the same filth that he or she was doing before. Below Daisha, Hanislavas Nifsika Mimeno. And it's not enough that just the excitement left. Rak B'chol Matzava Nishar Shuv Ish Namach V'Garua Kamo, next page, Kamo Shahaya. But then you go back But then it's especially disheartening because then you go back, not just that you are like doing all the same things you did on a higher level, just without the excitement. You go back to be as bad as you were before, doing the stuff before you had that growth period. And then, but then your state goes back to being even worse than it was before, Be'asher Barishona, than it was before. Teram before he ever ascended. Kamamisha Ola El Makam Gavoa, and he gives a mashal. It's like someone who goes up to a high place. Shanafila Yechol Lihios Shanafila Yechol Lahazik Lo Chas V'Shalom Yoser Mi'ilu Lo Halach V'Lo Allah. That if you go to a higher place and you fall, so you're more damaged than if you had not ascended to begin with. So the same thing for us spiritually. If anybody, I don't know, maybe most of us can relate to this, that sometimes after a period of growth, that when you have a fall, you end up doing things that you weren't even doing before, when you weren't even having such spiritual sagas. You end up doing things that you didn't even consider doing then, and then you end up doing even worse things. So it becomes very disheartening. Just skip to the paragraph, to the bottom paragraph. Again, it's just a little piece of a 4-page piece. Something worthwhile to see the whole thing in Parshas Vayigash. But Siva Gedola Hi Lazu. But there's a great reason for this. Why you feel so discouraged. Al she'inha adam b'chlal makir mahu nitzotz kedusha bo. You don't see any spark of holiness within yourself in this state, in this lower state. Ki al pirov ba'a b'libo min daiga al matzav hanamach. Mostly, what you feel is that you feel like a kind of worry, or you feel a kind of anxiety that you feel because of recognition of the state that you're in now, your low state. Ve'eno choshev shadaiga zu min hisgalos kedushahi. And it would never occur to you to think that the worry that you're having about your current state is any kind of spiritual revelation. Just the opposite. V'doma shekamo ha'ani rachmana litzlan. You know, it's just like, you think it's just like a poor person. Ka'asher makir as reisho v'doeg alav. When a poor person recognizes his poverty, he knows he's poor. You know, he worries about his situation. He doesn't have what he needs. He worries about it. So she'ein lomar shadaigaso zu ashirusi. No one would ever say that a poor person's worry about his poverty is a form of wealth. No one would ever say that. Kain gamhu. So too, a person thinks about himself and his own worry about his lack of motivation, about how he feels dead inside and how he feels so low right now. Kigamhu shadoeg al anius nafsho. When a person is worrying and feeling bad about his own spiritual poverty, chareva churbana, his spiritual destruction, v'yisrach akusa, his distance from God. Just like he wouldn't consider a poor person's worry about his poverty as a form of wealth, he wouldn't consider his own worry about his spiritual poverty a form of holiness. A person would never think that. Therefore, when a person has such worries, nishar yoshev v'dalim, he remains silent and passive, because he's just stuck in that place where he is. And sometimes he feels even hopelessness, that he'll never reach back to that little higher place that he touched for a little bit. Lemor kvar rabu pagamai. A person says to himself, my blemishes have already overtaken me. Uvechlal nishar yoshev. Uvechlal kol matzavi gas ad shegam ani sheshakua ba ad savari gam ken roa zos va'afilu imea shanim echya. Ha'im ucha la'alos min refas hazeh ad sheyagia al kolpanim betachtes hakadusha. A person thinks that he's so immersed in his own spiritual filth that even if he would live 100 more years, trying to do better, that even then he doubts that he even touched the lowest level of holiness. Below yeda shegam da'aga zu, and the person doesn't know that even this worry that he feels about his current state, it's not an inspiration to do better, right? Right now it's just a worry. It's just feeling bad about his state and his own emptiness. Ushviras alev, and this brokenheartedness, zemin hisramunusu, he doesn't know that that's an elevation, that's a form itself is a form of elevation. Who doeg im yuchal b'chol shnosav liga b'tachtas ha'kedusha, worries that he's never even going to reach the lowest level of holiness. Ukvar ata Shechina HaKadosh B'socho. What he doesn't know is that the divine presence is already within him. That daiga that he's having is actually an expression of Hashem's presence that's inside of him. Ukeviyachol oches bevigdo. It's as if that bit of worry is Hashem's presence within him, tugging on his garment, tugging on his clothes. And beged is milashon boged. Beged, his clothes, is lashon boged, is a lashon of rebellion. Bahapagam ba'atzmo, that Hashem's presence is pulling on his beged, on his garment, on his rebellion itself, ba'atzmo uveda'agaso, and on his worry, al namichiuso, on his own state of, on his own lowliness. Rachman otzlan ochez Hashem ba'omer lo chazor b'cha. And he's saying to him, return. Right? He's pulling on that bad feeling is pulling on him. When he's going on, if you read the whole piece, he's going on a medrash that says that it says about a king and how Hashem, whatever he's oches b'vigdo, Hashem grabbed his baged, grabbed his boged, grabbed his rebellion, and said chazor b'cha, and he's comparing it to this. And if you learn all this farm, the more you learn all this farm, you'll see that when you're in a low place, when you're in a place of small-mindedness, when you're in a place where you're not having any kind of spiritual, mental, you're not holding it all, right? Just in a place of very small-mindedness, then you're not open, you're not able to hear big ideas, you're not able to hear holiness and big ideas and great aspirations. You're just not holding there. You can't hear it. So therefore, Hashem appears to you in the darkness within yourself. He appears to you within as part of that darkness. And here he's saying that worry that I have within me about myself, not that it's associated with any hope, but just that worry that I have within me is actually Hashem tugging on my garment, tugging on my beged, on my begida, on the rebellion within me, and saying, Chazor b'cha, you could do it. I'm still here. There's still something about you that hopes for something more. That's why you feel bad. I'm still here within you. V'hu tzarach le'emor l'nafsho. So when a person realizes that, whoa, wait a second, there's actually still godliness within me, and there's lowliness that I find myself, that God is still within me, that I still can contain God within myself, within this disgusting self, as I see it, this disgusting self. So, hu tzarach le'emor l'nafsho. So then the person has to say to his own soul, once he can chop around and realize, have a moment of recognition of why he has this feeling of worry. Im Hashem etzli, if Hashem really is by me, if he's within me, achazti v'lo arpeno, so then let me grab onto him and not let go. Is davek ata b'kedushaso yisbarach. Let me cling to him into Hashem's holiness. V'yakel li lashuv l'tahir. And that makes it easier for me to return, recognizing that there is a little bit of holiness that's still within me, and that I can return by holding on to that. And by Hashem's light, I can move and go and actually change. And it connects us back to the first pasuk. V'yigash elav Yehuda v'yomer bi Adoni. We're just talking about seeing something deeper in the Torah. It says V'yigash elav Yehuda. Yehuda approached him v'yomer bi Adoni, and he says bi Adoni, which the Pashut Pshat means, please my master, talking to Yosef. But he's explaining here means bi Adoni, that bi within me is Adoni, my master. That my master Hashem is within me, even though Yehuda and everything he went through and all of his sins and everything he felt bad about himself. He did a lot of things wrong with my son Tamar. So he felt bad about himself, but he realized, Bi Adoni, no, I'm holding on, I'm recognizing that there is a little bit of Hashem that's still tugging within me in that guilt, in that daiga that I feel about myself. And that we're supposed to go till 15?
I think so.
Okay. Right, because you're supposed to speak till 15 till 30.
Or 20 till 30.
Okay, I'll 20 till 30. Okay. So he says, I'm not going to read the middle piece and the Meir Shiloach. It's radical. I suggest you don't read it either. But I was sort of joking. But he basically what he's talking about is he talks about this idea of on the simplest level of the world, and this is the level that Gemara is talking about. It says Hakol b'yedei shamayim chutz mi'yirei shamayim, that everything is in the hands of heaven except for fear of heaven. And he says that but on a deeper level, everything in the hands of heaven is in the hands of heaven, including fear of heaven. What does that mean? There's different ways of understanding that, different things that means, and the way that you see that in other Sfarim, and you try to take it all together, but it means that, a lot of times we say, "Hakol b'yedei Shemayim chutz mi'yirah Shemayim." My yirah Shemayim is in my hands, right? Chutz mi'yirah Shemayim. Yirah Shemayim, my fear of heaven, whether I do the right thing or the wrong thing, my moral choices is in my hands. And so, therefore, I have the right and the obligation, and I would be Am ha'aretz if I didn't just beat myself up for the rest of my life because of the mistakes that I've made. Because Hakol b'yedei Shemayim chutz mi'yirah Shemayim, my yirah Shemayim is in my hands, and I made mistakes, or I'm not getting out of it yet. And therefore, I just need to beat myself up. And what he's saying is, this is the comment I made very briefly in the panel, was that can you change the things that you've done in the past? Again, you can do tshuva for the things you've done in the past, but you can't change the fact that you did them. You did do them, and if you look back at a videotape, you did it. So you can't change it. Therefore, because you can't change it, that means it's part of Hakol b'yedei Shemayim. The choice that I made in the past is part of Hakol b'yedei Shemayim. It's not part of chutz mi'yirah Shemayim. And so, it's a more extreme example, but it's just this idea that I've gotten, at least from Chassidus, and hopefully try to remind myself and do little words to God here and there throughout the day to just remind myself of how parts of my life are l'chadchila, are designed by God. That's the way it's supposed to be. I don't like it. I don't want it to be that way, or maybe I don't think even Jewishly it should be that way, but it is that way. And that means that God designed the word l'chadchila, not b'diavad, that it is a certain way, and that if I've developed certain neural patterns in my brain because of past behavior that I'm dealing with now, that's the pattern. That's the way that's the path the neurons have been tread in my brain today, because of the past. So that means that's l'chadchila. That's part of Hakol b'yedei Shemayim. That's part of Hashem's. It's part of the line where Hashem is in control. And it's that he wants l'chadchila, not b'diavad, not second best, not second fiddle. That this is the way that I serve God today, with who I am today, with the particular gifts and difficulties and challenges and talents and interests and passions and aversions that I have, and that Hashem either made me born with, or came through my environment, or came through my own past choices.
I'm just feeling a sense of fatalism, like this is who I am, so I'm accepting where I am, or it's Hashem's plan,
Right.
but we talk about changing,
Right.
We're not stuck in, a certain path.
Right.
We can shift, move, so how do you merge that?
Well, first of all, there's no question that if for a thinking person, that's always going to be difficult. Balancing that, that's never going to be easy. But what I said a few times was, what happened in the past is part of Hakol b'yedei Shemayim. What happens in the present is, we're obligated to believe, is part of Uvachartz V'chaim, is exercising our bechira and doing good. And the truth is, it empowers me to be able to choose good now by not beating myself up and feeling burdened by everything from the past. By recognizing that, that's in Hashem's plate, that's not on my plate. It's off of my shoulders. I don't have to feel bad about that because it's in the past. It's part of Hashem's business. So it actually frees me up to be able to be liberated from the past and say, okay, take today is a new start. The plate is set the way it's set, and let's make the right choices for the reality that exists today, and not live as if the reality. I think a lot of us live in this pretend reality that because it should have been a certain way, so then we live as if it was that way. And then we live in this untenable reality where we hold ourselves to a standard of acting in a way because of the way it should have been, even though that's not the way it is. And I think that's a level of kfira in that, because it's denying that that the way it is today, the table that's set for me today, is part of Hashem's plan. That was somehow outside of Hashem's plan. We kind of foiled God's plan in the world by just living our lives. That God's that foilable. But that it certainly is difficult, and there is definitely a dark path one could go down with these ideas, by misusing these ideas, and recognizing that there's no choice, and just think, okay, so then,
But
I'm
also,
just
kind of always kind of waving on yesterday, past, like, okay, so today's always a new day, without, I don't know.
owning or
Yeah, taking response, well, you're not saying it, but one could, it's always, we just press restart,
right.
as opposed to.
I mean, not to well, the question is every day, what's the right thing to do today? What's the next right thing to do? Like, let's say I snapped at my wife yesterday, and I hurt her feelings after she did something really nice for me, right? And then that was something wrong, right? So then you say, oh, it's in the past. It's in God. It's part of God's plan, And obviously it would be not the right thing. But you're right that that's not in contradiction, or doing the right thing would not be in contradiction with what, at least the message I'm trying to hopefully giving over, if I'm doing so accurately, which is that today, what's the next right thing? And the next right thing, of course, is to make amends and to do tshuva with somebody that I've hurt, especially someone like my wife, but like so I think that idea of doing whatever the next right thing is, that encompasses taking responsibility, to the extent that my next right thing today is taking responsibility, so then that is my next right thing for now. And there is, again, there is a dark path of not taking responsibility, and I heard someone, this Akol B'Yidei Shamayim Afilu Yireh Shamayim, from the Ishbitzers. I've heard somebody say, there's such a thing as klipas ishbitz, which I don't know if you're not familiar with the term klipa, but it's like the evil of Ishbitz. I don't know how you say it, but it's like the dark side of Ishbitz. Say something like that. That it's fall on the dark side. It's misusing that. It's putting on the Yediyah glasses when you should be putting on the Bechira glasses. There's a lot of, if you look in Rav Tzadok in Tzidkas Tzaddik, I think in the Mems or the Nuns in Tzidkas Tzaddik, there's a lot of exciting pieces over there, and he goes a lot into this with Yediyah and Bechira, and when you have choice, when you don't have choice, and which way you're supposed to look at it at any given time, and it's really fascinating. But there's no question that it's a difficult topic, and I think anybody that's being honest with themselves is probably going to make errors along the way too. But again, you have to be forgiving of yourself, and because otherwise, again, you just feel so bogged down that you don't have the ability to do the next right thing, because you just feel so bogged down by it.
Suggesting that you own the next step, including the next step that has to do with your previous step.
Right, because that's the next step. That's not the previous step.
Right. But
This idea, this workshop is studying Chassidus, the deep and well understanding about the Torah. I just think that there is, when I discovered in Torah originally, and for me, at least in Chassidus, again, was that there is so much depth, and there's so much depth in life that's important to take. I don't know whether it's to learn Chassidus, to learn Shira, and learn from people or sources that that you feel help you get a deeper understanding of your life, and then after that, it's really up to you to just talk to God a little bit here and there, at work, at home, cooking, changing the baby, whatever it is, learning, interrupting, here and there, to remind yourself that this is part of God, or you're dealing with a difficult child or a difficult sibling or a difficult parent, and recognize that this is the way it's supposed to be, and what does God want from me right now? But that it's not my life is not a bidiyavad, whatever it is. So Hashem, may we be zocha to internalize that.